Yo is the Disenfranchised Podcast, with a podcast all about those, those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves like full-fledged franchises, but fall flat on the face after the first film. I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy, and joining me as always is my co-host Tucker. Hey, Tucker.
Hey, yo, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yo, we're just a couple of good guys who got to ask a lot of bad questions.
Yeah. Hi, Steven. How's it going?
It's going, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Oh, man. Tucker, there is, in defiance of God's will, a fourth Expendables movie dropping this weekend.
There is, yeah.
And so, look, we've threatened it for a while, but it's finally time for us to talk about a Sylvester Stallone movie on this podcast. And so what Sylvester Stallone movie did we choose to talk about today, Tucker?
We're talking about Cobra, the coolest VHS box ever.
I'm going to need you to do another take of that, and I'm going to need you to say it like you did in the G.I. Joe episode.
How did I do that in G.I. Joe?
Cobra!
Nice.
So what movie are we watching this week, Tucker?
Well, Steven, we're watching the Sylvester Stallone classic, also best VHS cover ever,
Cobra! From 1986, it's Cobra. Written by Sylvester Stallone, based on a novel by Paula Gosling, directed by George P. Cosmatos, and starring Sylvester Stallone, Brigitte Nielsen, Rennie Santori, Andrew Robinson, Brian Thompson, John Herzfeld, Lee Garlington, Art LaFleur. What a cast, Tucker! What a picture.
I will agree. This director has made some really good movies.
Based on what I have heard, he did not really direct much of this one, though.
It shows. It fucking shows.
Yeah. This was his. I mean, Stallone kind of came in and threw his weight around. Is what I am given to understand.
He came in there and put his thing down.
He put his thing down. He flipped it and reversed it.
All right, so you go in there and put your thing down.
All right, you go put your thing down. But yeah, this is the man who also gave us the best Rambo movie, First Blood Part 2, and Tombstone, which is fucking
wow. Big fucking disagree. I think First Blood is the best, with Rambo, the fourth film in the series, being the second best. 2 and 3 being worthless piles of garbage.
Two is the one where Rambo becomes Rambo, but
that's not my Rambo.
I'm sure you think Last Blood is probably the best of the best of the best, right?
Oh, that one is the worst of the entire fucking series, because they take what was great about the first one and the fourth one, and they pretend like that's what it's going to be, but then they just shit down its throat. Fucking hate that. I was so disappointed. I think that's the most disappointed I've ever been in Sylvester Stallone.
Wow. And look, let's be honest. A disappointing performer, Sylvester Stallone, just generally speaking.
Maybe for you. I think he's the shit.
More times than not, I have been. That's what I mean, though.
But I think he's a very fucking talented man, because you haven't seen Copland, man.
I still have not seen Copland. I have not seen the remake of Get Carter. And I have also...
okay. Well, the movie's okay. He's good in it. The movie's not that great. It's fine.
I have not seen... What's that?
Michael Caine shows up, which is kind of fun.
I mean, the original Carter, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know.
I saw the original Get Carter. The original Get Carter is fucking incredible.
Oh, yeah, it's really good. I think that's the only reason the remake isn't as good, because if it weren't called Get Carter, it would be just fucking fine. But to come off of the original, it doesn't really do anything right, except for the casting.
And I mean, let's be honest, Rocky, fucking great franchise. Like, we love Rocky.
Dude, you gotta get into those. You gotta get into those Sylvester Stallone deep cuts, man. Stuff like I See You, which was this detective movie he did that was really good. You gotta see Fist, future episode of Tukey Takeover, aka Straight Up. Fist. We're doing that one in February, I think.
I think that's
No, I
right.
think we're doing Parents. No, yeah, we're doing yes, Fist in February. Yeah, that was the movie he did right off of Rocky. Bombed, but it is amazing, and it has much better politics than this piece of shit.
I mean,
BT
yeah.
Dubs.
No, the politics are bad in this.
Because let's be clear, Cobra is just Dirty Harry if he just really had his head up his own ass.
This is like Dirty Harry meets Death Wish cranked up to 11 is what this is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the last movie like this of this era. Like they don't make them like this anymore. They really shouldn't
No.
make them like this anymore.
We're glad that they did, but we don't need any more.
Correct. Which again, this because look, we're covering on this podcast, which means they absolutely wanted to sequelize this, and it
Sure
didn't
did.
happen because this is right around the time when canon is crumbling, which we did talk about.
Canon. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about canon. Like Tucker, what is your history with canon films? What is your favorite canon film? What movie do you think of when you see the canon logo across the screen like we did for Cobra today?
I don't.
No love for canon?
It's something that kind of slipped under the radar. I've probably seen stuff. I'd have to pull up like list of canon films.
Because see, here's the thing. I cannot imagine. You seem like the kind of person who would dig some canon movies.
Okay, I'm in 68. Okay, nope. Crucible of Horror, maybe. Silent Night, Bloody Night. I did used to own that. That's something I'm aware of. Eye Monster is something I'm aware of, but I have not seen. Blood Feast. I know that one. Okay, here's more modern here. And by modern, I mean the 80s. Okay, Happy Hooker. Are these all... Oh, there's Death Wish 2. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say they did a lot of the
like...
Death Wish sequels, yeah. But like Break Into, Electric Boogaloo.
They did Break In. I was going to say they did Break In, which is the far superior film out of the two. It's just people really love the title of the second one.
I mean, look, they rushed the second one into production, and it came out later the same.
Oh, they did
year.
Rappin'.
Yeah,
Rappin'.
They were like, look, we found success with street dancing. Let's try rapping.
Yeah, this is Delta Force. I'm aware of that, but this is really just a big blind spot for me because these aren't really the kind of B movies I was into. Texas Chainsaw 2, yeah, I'm into that for sure.
Oh yeah, love that's
one of the best sequels of all time.
I am with you on that. I think you and I are in the minority on that, but I talked on Pod and the Pendulum. It literally no one else wanted to come on that episode, so it's just me and Mike talking about how much I love the sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's so good. Yo, they did Alien from LA. Have you ever seen Alien from LA, Steven?
I have not, Tucker.
It's a movie that stars Kathy Ireland.
Okay.
And she wears big glasses. And she speaks in a squeaky voice the whole time on purpose. It's not even her voice. It's part of the character.
That sounds really obnoxious.
It's about this gal whose dad disappears, and he's like a scientist, and she is looking for him, and she finds herself in like this underground world, very much like kind of like Little Monsters meets something like Tank Girl.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really weird movie, and there was actually a sequel to it. I don't remember what it was called. I saw it on season 7 of Mystery Science Theater back in the day when that was airing.
Right on.
Oh, they did TV show DC Follies.
Okay.
Remember DC Follies, the creepiest shit you've ever seen in your life?
Nope, sure don't.
It was a political comedy where all of the politicians on the show were played by creepy ass fucking puppets. Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid. We used to watch that shit. But yeah, this is a big blind spot to me because, like I said, at this time when this kind of stuff was coming out, when I would have been interested in this, I was strictly into horror, and I was actually talking about this to someone earlier today. It's like I am a lover of all cinema, but my roots are in horror.
Right.
Like that's how I became a fan of all cinema. Is I got my start in horror. That's where I began my love for cinema. So at this time, like, yeah, it would just be a blind spot.
I would encourage anyone who wants to know more about the history of canon, um, and kind of their rise and fall and everything in between. There is a 2014 documentary by Mark Hartley called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. I watched
It's
that during
streaming.
quarantine a couple years ago, and it is really fucking good. It is a really, really good documentary, and it kind of made me want to like go watch a bunch of canon movies. Honestly,
I'm
like,
for sure interested in the documentary. Is it streaming anywhere?
let me find out.
And then after this, you're gonna ask me my history with this film, right?
I am, yeah, and
Okay,
I know
I didn't want it
exactly
just to
what you're
be a
about to.
canon thing.
No, well, I mean, look, canon is kind of on their way. They're losing relevance around this time. I think the same year that this movie comes out, they're making their last film that's going to be Oscar nominated, which is the Christopher Reeve film Street Smart. Basically, he comes back to do Superman 4, so they'll let him do that movie. And it was not very well received by most people, but it did end up getting an Oscar nomination, I suppose. So there's that. But yeah, that was kind of his like the thing that was like his little passion project. The Electric Boogaloo is, it looks like it's available to rent. It looks like on YouTube,
Oh,
but I do not see it streaming free anywhere. Oh no, it's not on
boo.
YouTube any longer. That's a bummer.
Double boo.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like it's. I think you can rent it. I'm looking to see if you can rent it anywhere.
Lost
And
forever.
I'm not seeing it. That's a kind of a bummer. I would, again, if you have the means and can find it somewhere to check out, I definitely would recommend checking that out because it's very fun. It's a very fun little movie. So worth your time. And again, if you're interested at all in that, I would do so. So yeah, Superman Quest for Peace came out the same year. So yeah, he does it because Canon agrees to fund Street Smarts. Or Street Smart, period. Just one smart. But yeah.
Only smart.
But I mean, this is so that's, I'm sorry, that comes out the following year. This is 86. That's 87. But they also have around this time they're releasing Toby Hooper's Life Force, which is very expensive. The Masters of the
Mm-hmm.
Universe movie, which is a huge debacle. That one performed so poorly that they like scrap the sets and use them for give them to Albert Pune to make a movie. Like it just a classic fuck up across the board there. But yeah, I mean, Canon, they made cheap B movies and in some instances made them fairly well, and were able to make a lot of movies that most people wouldn't, no other studios probably would have made. Which is why Canon's always got a little respect from me. I'll always put some respect on the Canon name for sure. But yeah, that's kind of Canon, and that's the studio that this comes out of. The origin. Well, let's, before we get into the origins of this movie, let's talk about our histories with Cobra. Tucker, what is your history with Cobra? Cobra.
Well, I've always been very interested in this film, but I've never seen it.
You were very
Because
excited to finally cover this movie.
very excited, much like The Phantom, something
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to watch, but it's just never found its way to my eyeballs. I've always been very interested in the VHS box art
Mm-hmm.
from the time I was a child until now. It's just iconic. It's very simple. It's like it is the 80s action movie box art. It's perfect. Stallone never looked better.
I mean,
It's amazing.
it's the one image of this movie. It's Stallone with the gun and the sunglasses. Like it's
Fucking aviators, dude.
right. That's what I mean, and that is his prime.
Matchstick in his mouth.
That is the primary look that he gives in this movie. He is serving that look, as the kids might say.
Yeah. Well, I've always enjoyed that that box art, but I never watched it. Now I do have history with a lot of the people involved in this film, which is another reason I was very excited to see it
Mm-hmm.
because our good friend George P. Cosmatos,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with his father, who was just George Cosmatos,
Sure.
um, who directed Zorba the Greek, by the way.
Oh,
Not that
right
it
on.
matters. But yeah, his dad was a big name in Hollywood before he was. And I have always been a big fan ever since I caught it on HBO when I was a kid of a little movie called Of Unknown Origin,
Hmm.
which is directed by the same man who directed Cobra. And Of Unknown Origin stars Peter Weller,
Your boy
and
Peter Weller.
he fights a rat. The whole movie is about this rat that gets into his house and fucks shit up, and Peter Weller fights that rat. And that's the
Hmm.
whole movie. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. If Barbara from Night of the Living Dead were telling it, she would say, and Peter, he fought this man. Is how she would say it. Yeah. And he ripped at me and he pulled at me. Johnny has the keys. Thank you. That's my Barbara. I'll be here all week. But anyway, Of Unknown Origin, amazing. One of my favorite. It is a creature feature. I call it a creature feature because it
Sure.
is kind of a monster movie, but it's just a rat. But the
I mean,
things
kind
that
of
this
like
guy
Willard.
goes through, yeah, it is kind of like Willard, sort of, except there's no like relationship between the guy and the rat. It's just he's trying to defend his home, and this rat is just destroying everything, and it's
Sure.
amazing.
Yeah.
Also, like we said, he directed First Blood 2, which, not my
Mm-hmm.
favorite Rambo film. Absolutely not my favorite. But also, the star of this film, I have a very rich history with, as I was touching on before.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons that this movie is more disappointing to me than it probably would be for most people, is because I have unrealistic expectations for Sylvester Stallone. And by unrealistic, I don't mean I expect things from him that he can't do,
Mm-hmm.
because I know he can do them. I've seen him do them.
Right.
I expect things from him that he's not willing to choose. Like, that's my thing with Stallone, is like he's one of the best to do it. Like, writing, directing, acting, all of it. He's
Mm-hmm.
one of the best. He stays in his lane too much. Like, he knows his audience, and I wish he didn't. Like, because the movies where he steps out of his comfort zone and does something different are just fucking amazing. Those are the best performances you'll see from him. Stuff like Fist, as I mentioned before.
Right.
Like, you're gonna want subtitles when he gets excited, but other than that,
Which is kind of
like,
par for the course for Sly. Let's be honest.
amazing. Love that man. Like, seriously, like a big influence on me as an artist. Just like some of the stuff that he's done, how he's pulled it off. Like, big inspiration. Love me some Stallone, and I think that's why for this movie, he's just it's like it's like when you see Vince Vaughn in a Vince Vaughn movie and then you see him in True Detective season 2. It's like that. Like,
Okay.
I've seen good Stallone. And Stallone's not bad in this movie. He's just strolling through it. He's strolling through this movie. This is easy for him, and it's good, but it's easy. It's too safe for me. As far as like being a Stallone fan the way that I am, this is too safe for me.
I mean, this is Stallone at kind of the height of his stardom.
This is Rocky 4 Stallone, because as you know, the Rocky movies reflect what's going on in Stallone's life when they were made.
Right.
This is Rocky 4 Stallone when he thought his shit did not stink.
Literally, this is his immediate follow-up to Rocky 4.
Yep.
It's so he's let me walk you through Stallone's 80s. So his big break, obviously 76, Rocky. Like
Yes.
height of his powers, top of the world. He waits 2 years. He does Fist and his
Yes.
and Paradise Alley, which I think might be
Also
the
really
first movie
rad.
that he directed, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say that's right.
I know he directed Rocky 2.
Well, then that comes out the following year. That's 79, Rocky 2. You get Nighthawks in 1981, which is he did not direct, but he's in the movie Nighthawks in 81. And then also in 81, Victory, where he plays, I think, a soccer player opposite Michael Caine. Michael Caine's in that movie too. So yeah, the stars of Get Carter together.
It's a swing
again.
and a miss, but an admirable swing is what I'll say about that movie.
Then in 82, you get Rocky 3 and First Blood. Big year for Sly. And then in 83, literally, this is the #1 movie the week I was born.
Mm-hmm.
His directorial debut, or no, I'm sorry, not his debut, but another film that he directed, Staying Alive.
Staying Alive.
I think the first film he directed that he's not in, maybe the only one that he's directed that he's not in. And then the year after that, it's Rhinestone. And then
Dolly
he does. Mm-hmm. Then he does in 85.
People can suck my butt. I like that movie.
In 85, it's First Blood Part 2 and Rocky 4.
Yes.
So like this is where like you've got the great year of Rocky 3, First Blood 82, and then this just ramps up all of those. And so like Rambo takes what First Blood does and just ramps it up to 11.
They
Rocky
shit
4,
all over it, yeah. The whole tone and point of the fucking movie, they just shit all over it.
But like
Instead of making him a damaged man, a realistic Vietnam vet, they turn him into a fucking invincible superhero, and it's disgraceful and it sucks. And
You're right, but also when you think of Rambo, you think of First Blood Part 2.
Yeah. I will concede 2 and 3 are amazing fucking action movies. Awesome, like the pinnacle of 80s action movies. They just don't sit well with me because First Blood exists. If the Rambo character started with First Blood 2, that would be fine. But everything they set up in the first one is so grounded and so emotional and so real and so painful. There's so much pain in that fucking movie.
The novel ends and the movie was supposed to end with him.
Seen that. You can see the deleted ending.
With him committing suicide, right.
Which is how it should have ended.
But we can't make a sequel of that. So that's literally what they said, and that's why we have what we have. Now, Tucker.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I want to confirm that this is actually correct, but do you know what the highest grossing film of 1984 is?
84?
And I promise this is all going to make sense.
I don't know.
I believe, and again, I'm going to double check my math on this to make sure that I am not just talking out of my ass, because I do that sometimes.
It happens, yeah.
I will do that. But I believe the highest grossing film of that year, or maybe it's the number 2. I don't know. We'll see.
What is it? Get on with it, Steven.
Fuck me. It is, I believe it is a little movie called Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, yeah. I believe the alternate title was Doot, ellipses.
Absolutely.
Good old Axel Foley and Judge Reinhold sticking bananas in tailpipes.
Axel Foley, Judge Reinhold. You gotta love it.
And fucking Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers.
Hell yeah,
dude.
Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop, the #1 highest grossing movie of 1984.
Cousin Larry, dude.
Now, do you know who was originally supposed to star in Beverly Hills Cop?
Stallone?
It was Sylvester Stallone. He was supposed to star in it, but he had some thoughts on the script. And so he took a pass at it, as he does. And basically what happens is he infuses it with all these action movie ideas, and it becomes too unwieldy. And the studio's like, we can't afford this. And so Stallone says, all right, I'm out. Peace. They recast, they go a complete 180, and they cast like the polar opposite. They cast Eddie Murphy. The sucky thing about it, the really fucking shitty thing about it is they don't recast the love interest character, but they don't make her the love interest anymore because Eddie Murphy is black. And you can't have a white woman and a black man together on screen. It's fucked.
Ooh,
It's real fucked.
Except that one movie with Sidney Poitier and Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
What was that called? Where she's blind. Have you seen that? You've seen that, right?
No.
What the fuck is that called? Yo, it's on Turner Classic Movies, man. It's on HBO Max. Watch it right now. It's called, I hate that we're getting so off subject, but you have to see this movie.
I mean, look, Tucker, this is what happens when you and I do a podcast together. We get off topic.
Yeah, Brett's not here to rein us in.
Yeah, this is Brett's fault.
A Patch of Blue. It's called A Patch of Blue.
Never seen it.
And it stars Sidney Poitier and, I'm sorry, Shelley Winters. How do I get those two mixed up?
That's a great question.
Because Elizabeth Hartman is that's why. Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay. Anyway, Shelley Winters is a blind woman, and she meets Sidney Poitier in a park, and she's like escaping this horribly abusive home life of these people that abuse her. Parents abuse her and just use her because she's blind and she can't like do anything. And so she runs away and she meets Sidney Poitier and like he takes her in and they like fall in love and shit and it's really cute and they straight up kiss, dude. And this is in 1965. 65, bruh.
And so like 20 years later, we can't have Eddie Murphy being romantically involved with a white woman.
Also, before we move on, Patch of Blue. Watch Patch of Blue. It's on Max. Go on the Turner Classic Movies thing. Watch Patch of Blue. It's so good. And honestly, any Sidney Poitier that I can get now is great because I can't watch the wonderful fucking movies he did with Bill Cosby anymore. Like, Let's Do It Again. Oh my God. Such a good fucking movie. All those movies he did with Bill Cosby are just amazing. But fuck Bill Cosby. I can't, like, if I didn't have such a history with him, then I could probably still be like, it's like Kevin Spacey. I'm like, yeah, that guy's an asshole, but this movie's the shit. Like Bill Cosby was my dad, man, my other dad growing up. Bill Cosby was my slightly darker complected father. And like, I just felt so betrayed when that shit came out. I can only imagine how his victims felt, but I'm saying like,
right.
I was so invested in Cosby. I owned so many of his comedy albums on vinyl. So funny.
Have
all
you
the
seen
movies he did with Sidney Poitier?
Cosby?
No, I don't want to, man. I don't want to because I don't want to talk about Cosby, man.
You need to.
I don't want to. No, it's a wound, man. It's an open wound.
No,
I'm still mad, I still feel betrayed.
The whole thing is reckoning with exactly what you're talking about, and you need to watch it. And it's W. Kamau Bell, and Kamau Bell is amazing.
I know you need to watch it. About it. I'll watch that if you watch a patch. If you watch A Patch of Blue, I'll watch the Cosby documentary.
Okay.
Deal.
The reason I brought up all the shit about Beverly Hills Cop, yeah, there was a point to all of that.
We were getting somewhere.
I was trying to, and then you had to go on this whole Sidney Poitier tirade.
Oh, Sidney Poitier. Oh man.
Look, I get it, but he has nothing to do with Cobra.
Look, one more thing. His daughter cannot act her way out of a paper fucking bag. Sidney Poitier, the gal, his daughter. Ooh, she's bad, man. She's the worst part of Death Proof. She's like if Quentin Tarantino wrote a character that was supposed to be him, but then he actually played it. Like, she's that fucking annoying. Ooh, I can't stand her in that movie. And everything else I've seen her in, like, the apple fell way far from the fucking tree on that. I'm sure she's lovely. I don't mean any disrespect, Miss Poitier. I know it sounds like I'm going real hard, but I'm sure you're a lovely person. I know you're a frequent listener to the podcast and probably a patron, so I apologize. I just think your acting in Death Proof is just really annoying, and I fucking hate it. It's almost a deal breaker if the rest of that movie weren't so damn good.
And sorry, speaking of that,
please go ahead. Yes,
I really don't know why you had to fucking say any of that. That has nothing to do with any fucking thing. That's just you being bitter.
But it's been something that's been on my chest for a long time, and
that's just you being a little bitch. Is what that is.
Any kind of opportunity to speak out about how much I cannot stand her in that movie.
We're gonna cover Death Proof one of these days, man. We're gonna cover Grindhouse.
I want to say I won't cover Death Proof unless it's Grindhouse together. as a thing. Yeah,
It's
I'm a
gonna
purist,
happen.
man. You know me. I'm a purist.
You're something. You're pain in my purist is what you are.
Yay!
Anyway, the
Anyway,
studio
yes, I'm
basically
done.
says, Stallone, no, this is too expensive. We can't make this movie. So he takes all these ideas and takes them over to Canon and folds them into this script. So this is, if you want to know what Sylvester Stallone's Beverly Hills Cop would have looked like, it
I had no
probably
idea.
would have looked a lot like this movie. Which the fact that this that I'm mentioning those two in the same breath is fucking weird as shit. Like the movies have nothing in common. And again, Eddie Murphy came into Beverly Hills Cop and made that his own, and then did 2 sequels. Whereas this is what Stallone does, and this is Stallone at the top of his game. This is Rocky 4 and Rambo 3, like the year before, and his next movie is Over the
One
Top.
of his best. One
Over
of
the
his
Top.
best.
A movie I know you
Straight
love Over the Top. Like that, yeah.
Meet me halfway across the sky.
I just love whenever he turns that hat around and the engines just start revving.
Yeah, dude. You gotta take it over the top, man. That's how you beat Pinball Kid, too.
I'm sorry, Rambo 2. I said Rambo 3 earlier. It was Rambo 2. And then after that, you get Rambo 3, you get Lockup, and then you get Tango and Cash. And then we're on the Stallone downslope. It's Rocky 5, it's Oscar, it's Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Future episodes of this podcast, Cliffhanger and Demolition Man.
Ooh, I like both of those movies.
I know you do. And then he does a movie called The Specialist, and then another future episode of this podcast, Judge Dredd. So
which is not good, but I like it.
I've literally just mentioned 4 Stallone movies that we will cover on this podcast one day. Should we do a Stallone theme month?
Ooh, can we? Yes, and but can we do Assassins too with him and Antonio Banderas?
Was that supposed to have a sequel? No, but it's the next one on his. It's the next one on his list, man.
Oh, it's so good.
So after Judge Dredd, he does Assassins, then Daylight, then the movie that you just will not shut up about. I've tried, but Copland.
Cop motherfucking Land, and it's one of those few films like Payback with Mel Gibson where the studio maybe was right, because the theatrical cut is a lot better than the director's cut. A lot better. And now in the speaking of on Copland, there's not a lot of, just the ending is different, and it's not really that different, but the theatrical ending I think is way better, fits the tone of the film a lot better.
Okay.
So yeah, see Copland. After you've seen and enjoyed the theatrical cut, check out the director's cut, because there's some stuff there that's not in the theatrical cut that's really cool and adds to the story. But overall, theatrical cut is where it's at.
Fair enough. And then after that, it's Ants, Get Carter, Driven, ICU, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Avenging Angelo. Shade, which is I think a poker movie. Spy Kids 3, and then we get to 2006 and we get the resurgence. It's Rocky Balboa,
the second best Rocky film. Actually, it's kind of tied with the first one for me.
It's Rocky Balboa,
barely better.
And then a couple years later he does Rambo. And then a couple years after that, he does Expendables, and he's back, baby. He does, the occasional bizarre thing, like he's the voice of Joe the Lion in Zookeeper. Expendable 2, Bullet to the Head, Escape Plan, Grudge Match, that movie where he and Robert De Niro are boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the closest we'll ever get to seeing Rocky take on Jake LaMotta. Which,
Raging Bull, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is, in my mind, one of the all-time greatest films. I mean, we love
up there for sure.
We love Uncle Marty, you and I. I don't think Brett loves Uncle Marty half as much as you and I do.
I think Brett's pretty indifferent. He recognizes.
I think he hates Martin Scorsese because Martin Scorsese doesn't like the MCU.
That's, well, I'd like to talk to Marty about that because I think he's going a bit too far with it. But we all have our own
I
opinions, and Uncle
I don't think he
Marty
is.
is completely. You know what? He's different time. Like, of course, he's gonna have different opinions than
But I love
mine.
Uncle Martin. But yeah, so this is Stallone at the height of his power, and from what I understand, he's kind of a nightmare on the set of this movie.
Oh, that
Um,
sucks.
like the supporting cast is not allowed to talk to him on set.
What? But that lady was his wife.
Well, Brigitte Nielsen, like the supporting cast,
Okay, I was gonna say what the fuck.
like Art LaFleur is not hanging out with Sly Stallone in between takes. Okay,
Oh, that's too bad.
as much as you and I both love Art LaFleur, as everyone should, Art LaFleur is a fucking legend.
Were they
Um,
married? They met on Rocky Four, right? Or were they married before Rocky Four?
so
Him and
yeah, let's
Bridget
get in. So
Nielsen.
yes, Rocky, Stallone and Brigitte Nielsen were, I believe, married for a while. Yes,
And you
they
know
were
what? I don't
married.
blame him because she is just a tall, beautiful broad. I'll tell you what.
She is, man. She absolutely,
That's
she's gorgeous.
a
Uh,
big old beautiful hunk of woman right there.
So they married in 1985. So it may have actually
6'1".
been.
She's 6'1".
She is an Amazon, is what
Classy
she
broad.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
I like her.
so she, we actually covered Brigitte Nielsen on this podcast previously in our Red Sonja episode.
Hmm.
Um, they apparently they had an affair on the set of that movie. That's a thing that I
Yeah,
learned.
her and Schwarzenegger, yeah.
And then they became engaged on the set or during Rocky Four, and then they married in December of '85. So they're married at the time this movie comes out.
Yo,
And
she still came back for Creed 2 as well. She
mm,
reprised her role from Rocky 4 and Creed 2.
nice. And
Yeah.
they divorced in '87, so their marriage was very very short lived. Um,
But
but
they remained friends.
they did. They've remained close. But yeah, no, Brigitte Nielsen, fucking amazing. But they're married on the set of this movie. At one point, again, this is according to IMDb trivia, so take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, Stallone comes up to the DP and is like, you know, we're over budget. You've got to, like, you know, knock this out. You've got to, you know, have your team speed up and all this stuff. And the cinematographer is Rick Waite is the cinematographer, looks at him and goes, well, maybe if you get your hands off Brigitte Nielsen's ass and stop showing off for your bodyguards, we wouldn't have any time problems. And
Uh-oh.
Stallone's just like kind of shocked that anyone would talk to him that way, but he does. Like he like chills out a little bit and like remains checked. And yeah, it was kind of one of those things where later he comes in and is like, no, he has a good sense of humor. You know, he's got a huge ego, but yeah, he's also, you know, he's a funny guy and he's got a good sense of humor about himself. Even if he is egomaniacal, he's got a good sense of humor about himself. And
He's self-aware.
he's the one that basically says, no, Stallone directed this movie. Cosmatos didn't really have much to do with this. Stallone directed this movie.
Why didn't they just have Stallone direct it? I mean, he's proven himself as a director.
At
Even
that point,
before
he
this
had
film, over and over. Like,
it, and I don't know if Canon could have afforded to have him write, direct, and star. It probably like a 2 out of 3 situation. Because
I feel like you
Canon,
should get a discount if you're you know, like a bulk discount.
well, like Corman and Kaufman, Golan and Globus are like, they are making these movies as cheaply as humanly possible.
And that
So,
budget doesn't move. Once that budget is set,
mhm.
motherfucker does not move.
And so that becomes then. So I'm guessing that probably has something to do with it. That, or they have a deal or something with Cosmatos, who had again directed his big hit from the previous year, First Blood Part 2. So like that's kind of where he's at. So, you know, he comes with Stallone on that, and this is probably the last time. I think this was the
Well,
last time they worked together.
and
So,
maybe that's the kind of relationship they had. I mean, you get actor director relationships like that where the director is really only there so the actor doesn't have to direct it.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
right,
Like I can imagine in this situation, like with First Blood Part 2, and probably in this movie, the director was probably just a vehicle for Stallone
Mhm.
because he probably didn't want to have to do all of that, but it was still probably basically his show, like any Edward
I've
Norton movie that is ever, you know.
right. Or I mean, I listened to the Blank Check podcast miniseries they did earlier this year on the films of Buster Keaton, and that was essentially how Keaton worked. Like they
Yeah.
would keep giving him directors, and he would fire them after a week, do it all himself, and they'd still get credit on the picture. Like it was just kind of how it
Well,
worked out.
and in a situation like this with Stallone and the director of this film, as long as it's amicable, it doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't bother me at all. As long as everybody knows what's going on and everybody's cool with it and everybody's getting paid, fuck it, make that movie.
I mean, and that's
Make
why
that
you
money.
get like the poltergeist conversation of like, did Hooper really direct that, or was that Spielberg? And like, by all accounts, they were both on set, and Spielberg was probably a lot more hands on as a producer. And I'm sure he and Hooper collaborated a lot. Like to hear Spielberg telling himself they had a very special, very collaborative relationship, and Hooper wasn't precious about it and would kind of like let him have sway. Like you're the boss. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
That's fine. So, and I think it's kind of, it can be a situation very much like that.
And it can be a positive thing. Like I think when you initially bring up something like that, it seems like a negative, you know, like, oh, Stallone was directing this from, you know, in front of the camera and this guy was just a puppet or whatever. But no, man, I mean, people have relationships like that, actors
Mm-hmm.
and directors, and it's just like TV directors. When you come onto a TV show to direct, you're basically just babysitting
Really? Yeah.
because this crew has been working together forever. They don't need a director. They just need somebody to stand there and make sure everything goes okay.
You got to make sure the camera's pointing in the
Because
right direction. You got to know when
yeah,
to say cut and action. And yeah.
because this is not a very special episode directed by like
Right.
the episodes of like CSI or whatever that Quentin Tarantino directed. Like he had some input into them, but like if you didn't know he directed them, you probably wouldn't fucking know he directed them. It's like
Right.
Kevin Smith has said many times about directing stuff on like the CW Arrowverse stuff. He basically just goes in and makes sure everything runs smoothly
Mm-hmm.
because they've got a rhythm. Like they know what they're doing.
And you
And
don't want to disrupt that. You don't want to throw that off.
that can be a good thing. And I think that in a relationship like between actors and directors, sometimes that can be a positive thing as well.
And we're just kind of speculating. We don't know if it was a good
Yeah, we
experience
don't
or a
know.
bad experience,
Could have been
honestly.
awful. I'm
Could have
just
been.
giving the benefit of the doubt, like I
Sure.
tend to do.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, we ultimately don't know. I don't think, like I said, I don't think they worked together again after this. So, so there's
You
that.
know,
That may have been an
your boy made
indication.
Tombstone. Your boy
I
made
mean,
Tombstone
true.
after that.
He made Leviathan in '89, Tombstone, and he took 3 movies after this: Leviathan, Tombstone, and Shadow Conspiracy.
Wow, I never heard that last one.
Nor have I. And then he passed away
Charlie Sheen,
in
Father and Son.
2005.
Stephen Lang. Well, it's a stacked cast though. Damn, maybe I should watch this movie.
There you go.
Terry O'Quinn in this bitch. Sam Waterston. Are you fucking kidding me? Gore Vidal. Holy
Holy
fuck.
shit!
Shadow Conspiracy. We're putting it on the list, boys.
There it
Watching this
goes.
motherfucker.
There we go.
Linda Hamilton. Golly, Duke.
Wild, fucking wild. But yeah, so I mean, so Cobra it reminds me of a trashy, like in terms of the visuals, and especially in the early scenes, like a trashy To Live and Die in LA. It's like a really trashy, really cheap To Live and Die in LA, which is a movie I adore, to be clear. I love To Live and Die in LA. It's a beautiful movie. Billy Friedkin, live forever. I know you passed away, R.I.P. King.
To me, it reminded me of like a mid-career Larry Cohen film, but unironically.
Mm.
I don't know if you've seen a lot of the mid-career stuff like Cue the Winged Serpent or God Told Me To, or The Stuff.
No, all of
It's
those
like
movies that we can cover. I don't know if God Told Me
those.
To is, but
It
the
was
rest of
like
those
those
had
movies,
sequels.
but they didn't have a tongue in their cheek.
Right.
And that's kind of part of what makes those movies work. And that's why for me this didn't really work for me. And to the point that I think it's beneath Stallone, honestly, as well. That's why like I feel like I had unrealistic expectations for this film. So the fact that I don't
Probably.
like this movie is probably fucking my own fault.
Yeah.
I expect too much. I know that Sylvester Stallone doesn't always make the kind of decisions that I would like for him to, as far as taking roles or signing on to movies. But I tend to just remember all the really rad shit that he's done. So whenever I
Mhm.
see something that he's in where it just does not work for me, it's just that much more disappointing.
Sure. And
'Cause I just
look,
love the fuck out of that dude.
and I get that. I absolutely get that. And I guess for me, I don't have that level of expectation for Stallone, right? Like I came up when he was like in the 90s. That's when I kind of started to know who Stallone was. So at that point, like he's in like a career nadir, like Judge Dredd, like that era, Demolition Man. That era is the era I know.
Cliffhanger, yeah.
Yeah, and those movies did not perform well, um,
Really.
at all. So like that's the Stallone that I know. That's the Stallone of my. So I don't have, and I didn't go back and watch the Rocky. I still have not seen every movie in the Rocky franchise. I've seen pieces of all of them, but I don't think I've seen every film in its entirety. And so that's a franchise I need to go back through and watch at some point, and I will, I'm sure, one of these days. Gonna have to
It's
at some point, right?
it's an interesting watch because it really does reflect Stallone's career. Each film
Yeah,
really reflects what he's going through in his career and his personal life at the time. And though they're not all great films, I would say the first one, the second one, and the sixth one are great films. The ones in between are so much fun it doesn't fucking matter.
like three and four are the ones I think I've probably seen most of. Like four,
Oh,
I think was
three
the
is
first one I
great.
ever saw. But you know, three is the one with Mr. T. Like, how can you fucking not like that? Come on.
Hey woman, hey woman. I love that scene. He gets so mad because he's like catcalling his wife and stuff, and he's standing right there, and they're in public, and he's like, hey woman, why don't you come over to my house, see what a real man love like?
No, you know the story of the premiere of that movie, right?
No, please tell me.
Mr. T brings his mom to the premiere of that movie.
Oh, Mr.
And
T, such a sweet man.
that scene,
Yeah.
she gets up and leaves the theater.
No, Mrs. T.
And so he follows her out and she's like, I didn't teach you to talk that way. Like, I didn't teach you to talk to women like that. And like, you're just like, but it's a
Most whole
movie,
thing.
but like, right? You're just like, oh.
I love them.
But so for me, and I'm looking at the action of it, and in terms of the action, this movie with its chases and the fun, it reminded me a lot of John Woo's Hard Target. I was getting a lot of Hard Target vibes off of
Really?
this. Which, have you seen Hard Target?
No, but I'm familiar with John Woo. I have
It's
not seen Hard
that is his
Target.
first American film.
Uh-huh.
It's Jean-Claude Van Damme in a John Woo film about this like drifter who comes into this town, and it's like 93, I think, but it's like it could be this. There's a car chase scene, and at one point he gets on a motorcycle and turns it around and stands up on it and drives back toward the truck while I think firing a gun. It's
Yes.
amazing. It's Wilford Brimley with a bow and arrow on a horse. Like,
Wonderful.
you need to see Hard Target. You
Well,
need
I've
to.
got to now.
You
Now the
fucking have. It's got like it's John Woo, it's Jean Claude Van Damme, it's Wilford Brimley. It fucking rips. It's very good, but it like ends in a warehouse, kind of like this one. Like, you know, not really a warehouse, but you know, like a factory. So the endings are kind of the same. It's got those chases, small town feel. Like it's all there. Like it's and again, I know this movie's supposed to take place in the city, but half the movie they're in like these small towns or on the outskirts of town. Like this movie feels like it takes place in the suburbs and the rural areas more than it does the urban areas, and I think that's a budget thing, but I kind of love it for that too at the same time.
I really something I did really like about this film was I did like despite the overacting of the shooter, the guy who comes into the grocery store with the shotgun.
Oh yeah,
Despite
yeah, yeah.
that, I really enjoyed the beginning because not only did it really take me back to the actual 80s,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when supermarkets used to look like that, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember when all the cars looked like that. I remember
Mm-hmm.
when people dressed like that. And I remember how it wasn't as colorful in the 80s, more of a sepia tone.
Yeah.
Our eyes hadn't fully adjusted to color yet in the 80s. um,
Look, we had it better than
but
our grandparents. That's all we'll say.
so I liked that, but I also liked that first scene in the grocery store. The way it was shot reminded me a lot of Dog Day Afternoon.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
really fucking love Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah, it's a great,
That was one
fucking
of the
great
first
movie.
like real movies
Mm-hmm.
that I got into. Like I got into horror, and then like I worked at a video store, and my friend was like, "You should watch this motherfucker." And I was like, "It's not horror though." And I watched it, and I was like, "Wow, there are things that aren't horror. This is amazing."
Sidney Lumet, man,
Yeah.
hell yeah. And that is one of like the 5 movies that John Cazale did before he passed away
Mhm.
tragically.
Yeah.
That man, like every
Great.
movie that he was in was nominated for Best Picture. Is that? I think that's right.
As it should be. Yeah.
Like because it's Godfather, it's Dog Day Afternoon, it's The Deer Hunter, it's Godfather Part 2, and The Conversation.
Yep.
That's his 5.
That's all you need sometimes, I guess.
3 Coppola masterpieces, a Lumet, and a Cimino.
Yeah.
Cut the check. Like
That's a good career. That's,
that's a
you go out on top.
You really do. I mean, it's such a fucking tragedy that he died, but
Absolutely.
the
But it is
body of
better
work
to
he left
burn out
behind
than it
is
is to fade away.
insane. And like, he's the guy that like Al Pacino said was the best actor he'd ever known. Like,
That, yeah.
he was fucking Meryl Streep, man. Like,
You
dude
know what
was
else he said?
with
You
Meryl
know what else he
Streep.
said about him?
What's that?
I heard that he said that he's got a great ass.
No, what he really said was, "I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart."
Well,
Um,
wow.
wow. Oh God, Pacino. I feel like Scent of a Woman broke Pacino.
Probably.
Because Heat, what he's doing in Heat makes sense. He's playing like a guy who's clearly doing coke.
So much. It's like he's got an IV of coke, I'm pretty sure.
You never see
Somehow.
him actually do it in the movie, but Pacino's like, this guy does coke. And not only does this guy do coke, this guy does all of the coke.
Every coke ever. All of the time. Every coke everywhere all at once.
Oh, and then but then he does that same fucking thing in Scent of a Woman where it doesn't make any sense, and you're like, and then he wins the Oscar for that one, and I guess he's just like, well, I guess this is just what you do now. That's what he does now.
Yep, that's his deal.
So maybe Heat's the movie that broke Pacino. I don't know. Anyway, Heat fucking rules. But you know what else kind of is awesome? Cobra.
I guess. Should we do the plot or something?
I kind of dug. I don't know. We're about an hour into this thing. We probably should. Yeah. So this is the part of the this is a part of the show called the Plot in 60 Seconds. This is the part where we, at the behest of the Canadian Quarter of Indifference, will decide which of us will be recounting the plot of 1986's Cobra in 60 seconds or less. Tucker.
Yeah.
Give her a flip.
Okay. Call it in the air, Steven. 1, 2, 3, go.
Tails.
Oh shit! I dropped it. I got flipped again. Hold up. Here we go. Are you gonna keep it the same? Or are you gonna call it again?
I'll call it again.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Heads.
It is tails, sir.
Son of a bitch. I am in no mood.
You can do it.
Right.
It's really simple. Really simple.
It really is. So, all right, give me the. So, go ahead and put 60 seconds on the clock. You're going to give me the 30 and the 10-second warnings. Unlike last week,
we don't have any late check-ins tonight, so I won't see anyone pass by my window.
All right.
I did put the 5 minutes later.
Oh,
in
did
the
you?
episode from last week? Yeah.
Nice.
I included all that stuff because it was just too golden. I couldn't take it.
I figured you probably would. Yeah.
So whenever you start talking, I'll hit the button.
So a guy walks into a grocery store starts shooting up the place, and who do you call? You call the Cobra, Sylvester Stallone, with all black and sunglasses and shit. And he's part of the zombie squad, which means he does whatever it takes to fuck anyone up. And so he does. And then there's a model who's a witness to the Night Slasher, who's the serial killer. There's actually a gang of people who just like smash axes together in crowded rooms. I don't know. It's fucking weird. Anyway,
30 seconds.
yeah, that. So Brigitte Nielsen sees them committing their crimes, and so the killers come after her. So Stallone and his partner Poppy from Seinfeld have to protect her. There's a big ass shootout. They like go into the country. It turns out one of the detectives is working with the cult. It's basically they go into a factory. And the Night Stalker gets skewered on a giant hook and then lit on fire. And Stallone kills like 40 people in this fucking movie.
And that's time. Like, they really wanted to get her. Like, at a certain point, you just give up. But no, they just, like, all resources went.
Mm-hmm.
All available calling all cars, kill this bitch.
Yeah.
As soon as you're done, you got to mash your axe together a certain amount of times first. But then as soon as you're done with that, you go after that bitch.
Yeah, that was fucking bizarre. I should have said at the beginning, our Brett Wright is standing in a crowded room full of people banging axes together. I should have said that at the top. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's something about it it's ominous. It makes no fucking sense, but it's pretty ominous. Apparently they're a Darwinist cult.
Well, and you can get away with shit like that and stuff like The Warriors, where it's kind of self-aware and it's kind of being a little bit silly while staying grounded, you know. Mm-hmm. But like in this movie, I don't know. It's supposed to be. I feel like this movie presents itself as more grounded than a movie that spends a good percentage of its runtime showing people just mindlessly smacking axes together for no fucking reason that we can discern.
In fairness, they spend less time on axe beating than they do on Stallone fucking just straight up murdering dudes.
Oh yeah, he kills the fuck out of some people.
Like IMDb, so grain of salt. Of the 52 kills in this movie, Stallone's character killed 41 of them.
Well, I mean, look, Steven. Stallone in this movie, Marion himself is
Marion Cobretti.
Yes.
What a dumbass name.
He's just Dirty Harry. Mm-hmm. If Dirty Harry had a fucking ego. Yeah. That's all he is. Dirty Harry is this middle-aged dude in a suit that just happens to be a fucking badass.
I don't know if
Cobra is a badass and he knows it. And so he buys the sunglasses. He's like, ooh, these will look cool. And he buys the sunglasses. Like, you know what would be cool? Is like if I put a matchstick in my mouth and just had it in my mouth all the time. And then eventually, I'll bet in my line of work, eventually, I will have a chance to set someone on fire with that fucking matchstick. Boy, that'll be a great payoff. Ooh, you know what looks good? This sleeveless shirt. Do you think this gun matches my jeans? Oh, that looks nice.
I'm going to get some gloves and cut the fingers out of him.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if we got this on the recording or not, but this movie is Death Wish meets Dirty Harry dialed up to 11.
Yeah.
Like that's what this movie is. And it sucks and rules for that reason. Like in equal measure, like the politics of this thing are like not at all. Like this guy is an unapologetic Vic Mackey from The Shield. Like that's pretty much what this guy does, except not necessarily with drug dealers.
Oh my God. He even basically word for word repeats Dirty Harry dialogue.
Yeah.
Like at the end when the reporter's asking him all the stupid questions and he's like, what about the rights of this guy? And you got Dirty Harry be like, what about the rights of that little girl? It's like come on, man! Like it's the same thing. They're saying the exact same thing. Like these
Tell
movies
that to his
are just
family.
Like,
yeah.
These movies are like a bloodthirsty pro-gun conservative's wet fucking dream, dude. Mm-hmm. Kill them all. Doesn't matter what they did. No context, no nuance. Fuck them. Kill them. They're criminals. Fuck them. They're dead. That's this movie, and that's Dirty Harry too.
Well, and then so it's interesting. Like this is so we're nearing the end of the '80s, which is sort of the end of the Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme brand of action hero. Like we're getting like Chuck Norris has started to make a couple movies, and then in a couple more years after this, you get Die Hard, which completely shifts the game because Willis is a TV sitcom guy. He's not an action guy, and all of a sudden you're putting
Moonlighting. Do ducks duck? Do
moonlighting.
flies fly?
Like,
I love that fucking show. Until they fucked, and then I didn't like the show. Like,
that
completely lost me after
you
that.
and everybody else. That was the whole point of watching.
Come on, man.
And every
I
show
love
that
that fucking
has
show,
a
though.
will they won't they that builds up over time, ratings always dip after they do. It's just what happens.
If you haven't seen the first 3 seasons of Moonlighting, I definitely recommend it. It is quality entertainment.
It's one of those things I don't think I've even really engaged that much with since it was on the air.
It kind of makes me sad that Bruce Willis, I'm glad that he had an action career, but I wish he would have done more comedy because he is so funny in that show. His timing is perfect. And he's so fucking charming. I wish he had done that and more stuff. And he tried to, stuff like Hudson Hawk, but it never went over well. And that's
future episode of this podcast, Hudson Hawk.
Fan
Same.
right here.
Same.
Love that movie.
I do too. I'm a Hudson Hawk apologist. I will apologize for that movie all day long. But what was I going to say? No, here's the thing about Bruce Willis, and I will just real quick. I will just say this: he's a really good actor. And the late career stuff, once we knew what we knew was going on with him health wise, a lot of those things that we kind of mocked him for in that era start to make sense. Like the man is sick and is having some issues and is not able to perform to his full ability. All that having been said, he's a really good actor, and I don't think America wanted to accept him out after Die Hard. I don't think we wanted to accept anything else from him at that point.
Yeah, but John McClane is funny too. Like first 3 Die Hards.
In the first 3 Die Hards, he's very funny. Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand why that like he got typecast just on that one part of that role because he proved it in Moonlighting. John McClane in the first 3 Die Hards is fucking hilarious. He's got the same kind of charm he did in Moonlighting.
Absolutely.
He's just a badass. He's the same guy.
Well, and I think
badass.
it's for Bruce Willis, it's a 2-pronged thing. It's getting older, but it's the Stallone thing. It's the ego, right? Yeah. Like the ego kind of gets in and becomes its own poison. So all of that, right? I think the big switch, or at least the thing that happens between this movie and Die Hard that really sort of ushers in a new era with Die Hard. In 1987, Lethal Weapon, and you get Mel Gibson as Martin Riggs. And again, it takes this kind of a character and humanizes him so much, like distills all of the emotions that a character like that should be feeling and pulls them up to the surface. And again, it's the brilliance of Shane Black.
And also Mel Gibson fucking nails that role too. Like fuck Mel Gibson, but he fucking nails it. Look, nobody could have done that like he did.
Here's the thing about Mel Gibson. Piece of shit human being. Pretty good actor and director.
Oh my God, he's fucking amazing. Ransom, Jesus, Louises.
Yeah, you've talked about Ransom before. I'm pretty
Golly,
sure.
That move. Whew. Get chills just thinking about that move. My nipples got hard there for a second, Steven. Woo!
Oh, there go my nipples again.
Ransom.
Speaking of Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
But so again, there's this shift kind of happening in what it means to be an action star. And this feels like Stallone's last like chest beating punch in this genre. Like this feels like, in the same way that the last action hero feels like the culmination of everything Arnold had done up to that point. Absolutely. This feels like that for Stallone. Like this feels like him, like the culmination of this era of his career. And I think in a very real way, Rocky IV will be, or No, because this comes up right after Rocky 4. So yeah, no.
Mhm.
Stands. I stand by my comment. So yeah, so this again, this feels very much like a culmination of everything he's done, and then shortly after this, we start his downward slope. And so this is
Well,
in
after
a
you
lot of
go
ways a
over the
turning
top,
point for
Steven,
him.
what do? You just
Exactly.
go over the top and then
You
right
you
down the
you
other end of that mountain.
you peak and then you fall. That's just
Such an
yeah.
appropriately named film. I'm
Mm.
telling you, man, sometimes this man's career and his life are just so synergetic that it's fucking ridiculous. Complete insanity. All coincidence, but
Hmm.
just wow.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting and fascinating. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there it is. Yeah, like
There.
so. Yeah, I mean, so there's a shift of a lot of things happening here. There's a shift in Stallone's career, in the public perception of action movies and what we want from an action hero, and like they plan for a sequel for this. It makes a decent amount of money. We'll get into that here very shortly. Makes
I
a
would
very
watch a
decent.
sequel to this. I
Yeah,
would. Even
this
though I
is.
didn't really like it, it has potential for me specifically.
I think
I
where
think
Stallone's politics are right now, I don't want him to make a sequel to this.
he's been so many places, man, because like the first thing he did after he hit with Rocky was make a pro union movie, dude. Like the guy is not he's not somebody who sticks to the left or the right. He's somebody who sticks to what he believes in. And even though I don't agree with him a lot of the fucking
I
time,
was going to say this is the man whose
it's
most
not
recent
no.
political statement was "Last Blood." So
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't agree with him most of the time, but I admire him for being his own person. Not saying, I'm a conservative and I believe all the conservative things, or I'm the liberal
sure,
and I believe all liberal things. No, he's like, you know what? This that makes sense to me, and so does that. So I'm gonna do my own thing.
he seems a lot
And
more thoughtful than the kind of meathead persona I think a lot of us kind of pin on him.
absolutely, I've been saying that for fucking years, man.
One of
Yeah.
my I'm just going to sidebar with the Stallone story really quickly because I think it's this. I saw this on TikTok. It's Tina Fey in like an SNL documentary, and she's like, "So yeah, my first year there, someone had me go give Sylvester Stallone the note that he needs to enunciate more." And
No, why? What? No.
and so she goes in like it's her first year, like she doesn't know. So she goes in and she's like, yeah, I'm getting sorry, I need you need to enunciate more." And he's like, "Yeah, what parts do they not understand?" And Tina Fey just stands there and goes, "Of course he's gotten this note before. Of course he has." Like, of course
Oh,
this is something that people tell him.
yo, I was just gonna say, like the reason that he talks like that, um, like when he was born,
Mm-hmm.
like part of his face was damaged, and like he has nerve damage on the side of his face, and which is why Rocky Balboa and subsequently Creed 2 when he appears again briefly,
Right.
uh, Homeboy from Heroes plays his son because he has the same thing.
Milo Ventimiglia, yeah.
He has the same thing. Brilliant fucking casting.
I,
And not to
I
mention, he fucking knocks it out of the park in both of those movies.
I think I heard him in an interview say, "Yeah, that was pretty much why I got the
Fucking
part."
perfect. Actually, sadly, another reason he got the part is because Sylvester Stallone's son, Sage, who originally originated that role in
Oh, that's
Rocky Five,
right.
had died uh, very tragically. Who he was a
Yeah.
filmmaker in his own right. He did
Right.
independent, like surrealistic. He was a real artsy fartsy dude. Like his shit is way
Nice.
out there.
Hell
It's
yeah.
really rad, and like it really sucks that he died because I think he had a very unique voice while also being in the position to be someone who could bring that unique voice to the mainstream because
Mm-hmm.
of basically
Because of
because
his
of
heritage,
nepotism.
yeah.
But yes, but I mean that's cool. Like I would have been way into that. It sucks that he died for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Milo Ventimiglia is, I mean, yeah, it's bizarre.
But one more thing on Stage Stallone, just to tell you
Hmm.
how out there he was. Frequent collaborator with Crispin Glover.
Okay. Yeah, that, you know what?
That
Everything I
kind of
need to
out
know.
there. That kind of out there, dude.
Everything I need to know. There it is.
Just the other side of cinema, you know? Nothing
See, I didn't
trashy, but just the real weird side of cinema.
like, because I didn't know if So that really helps me narrow it down. Right on. So Cobra opens in theaters on May 23rd, 1986. It opens at number 1. It opens at number 1. It opens to 15.7 million. Yeah.
I mean, basically because we're covering it. So like,
well, here's the thing. Sometimes movies that do pretty well just don't get sequels. And I think, I mean,
there's
I don't
this
know.
Thing called development hell that I've heard of.
Yeah, it exists. But yeah. And for all we know, it could have been any number of things. A lot of times it's something like script approval or whatever,
scheduling, financing. Yeah, there's
all of it.
Many things that can go into it. Yeah.
In second place, another sequel to a movie we've already talked about in this episode, Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, which opens to 12.4 million. In third place, in its second weekend, down from number 1 the week before, a movie that just got a sequel for the first time like last year, and it was one of the biggest movies of the year, a little movie called Top Gun.
Aha.
Tony Scott's Top Gun.
I still haven't seen that new one, man.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I believe that it's good, but I think it's probably too gung-ho, yeehaw, USA, yay for me.
Well, you know, the foreign power has no name in that movie.
Well, and
so
nice throwback to the 80s there, because it was always just some like unnamed Arab or like Asian person. You know, like we don't know where they're from, but they're, you know, brownish. You know? That
feels like a late 80s, early 90s thing. Like once the Soviets can't be our enemies anymore and we have to focus somewhere else. That becomes a persistent theme.
Yeah, the only like specifically named villains from the 80s I remember were the Libyans.
Yes, in Back to the Future.
Right. I sold him a faulty bulb casing full of pinball parts.
Fourth place, Short Circuit.
Hey, I love that movie.
Fisher Stevens. I think it Fisher Stevens, it bears repeating, not Indian.
No. I mean, like, racism aside, does a great job in the role. I don't know what to tell you. He's phenomenal in the role. I don't know what to tell you, man.
The fact that you have to start that sentence with racism aside.
Racism aside. No, but man, you got Ali Sheedy in that first one, man. You got Michael McKean in the second one, dude, as Fred. Man.
And then in fifth place, you got a little movie.
I guess we're moving on from Short Circuit. Please go ahead.
Yes, we are, because I want to wrap this.
Oh, but Michael McKean. Sorry, go ahead. An Oscar input. Sorry, I'm done. I swear, I'm done. I have so much to say, but that's all I'm going to say.
Dude, we can do Short Circuit 2 on Unenfranchised sometime. You can get all your Short Circuit thoughts out.
Yes, especially the second one. The first one's the superior film, but the second one is the more entertaining of the two.
Fifth place, Michelle Pfeiffer film called Sweet Liberty. I have no idea what that is. I've never heard of it.
Me neither.
This movie makes about $49 million across its box office run, which is
about double the budget.
I mean, yeah, it's so, perfect sequel fodder, particularly for the the cheap canon, and yet we don't ever get it. Probably because Stallone didn't want to come back for it.
And that's something like Rambo, where you build on it too. That's a series that's going to keep making more money.
Exactly.
Where a lot of the times you get a franchise where the first one is always, the first one's always going to be the one that makes the most money.
Mm-hmm.
But the sequels make enough money that it's
they justify the continued existence. Yeah.
But like something like this movie,
mm-hmm.
at least the first couple sequels would have made way more than this one,
Right.
guaranteed.
There's no reason this should not have gotten it. Again, I think canon is starting to lose steam at this point, which makes continuing something like this, it's going to require, and particularly as the movies progress, they're going to get bigger. So
yeah, you can't do a B movie as a sequel. You can't do a sequel on a B movie budget.
No,
Absolutely
you've got to Terminator 2 that shit. You gotta take that up to the next level in every respect. But yeah, so apparently critically not well liked. The tomatometer score on this one 18%.
No.
The critics' consensus: a disengaged Sylvester Stallone plays the titular Cobra with no bite in this leaden action thriller, queasily fixated on wanton carnage and nothing else. Which feels,
I mean, that's fair, but
mean.
also, it's fair, but also that's the kind of movie it is.
Exactly.
Like, pull your head out of your ass. Come on. Like, I did not particularly enjoy this film, but I get why people like it. Like, the reasons I don't like this movie are my own fucking fault. And it's a whole half a star is my own fucking fault when we get to our ratings.
Yeah, we'll get there. The Metascore is 25 based on generally unfavorable reviews from 9 critics. And the Letterboxd score on this is a 3.0. Tucker, out of 5 stars, how are you rating 1986's Cobra?
Look, it gets 3 stars because I only liked it 2.5 stars much. But it's my own fault for having unrealistic expectations for several people that are involved in the making of this film. So it gets an extra half a star because I know I'm just being a little bitch about it. So 3 stars.
3 stars. It's 4 for me.
I'm self-aware. Come on.
I had a lot of fun with this one. I had a good time with it. It's
I wanted
fun
to.
movie.
I could see the fun there, but I was just having trouble connecting with it because of, like I said, my unrealistic expectations.
While I was watching this movie,
director, the star.
While I was watching this movie, I pulled out my phone so I could check Amazon to see if this thing was on 4K yet, so I could buy it.
I'd watch this in 4K. I wouldn't own it on 4K, but I would watch the fuck out of this on 4K. The amount of film grain on that 80s shit, those lenses that they use.
Yeah. That's the good shit. That's the good shit right there. So yeah, that, friends, that is our episode on 1986's Cobra.
We did it, boys.
We did it. Cheers. High fives all around. This has been the Disenfranchised Podcast. You can find us on all the social platforms. That's Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Facebook, and Threads at disenfranchpod. You can shoot us an email, disenfranchpod@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing, what you think of what we're doing, any and all of that. We do love to hear from you. And hey, if we like what you have to say, we might even read it out here. Speaking of liking what you have to say and reading it on the podcast, swing on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and leave us a nice big old 5-star rating and review. That's going to help us find other listeners. And if you do leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it on this podcast right in this little spot right here. And this is not the only show that we record from week to week. There's another show called What Are We Watching? And if you would like to hear it, you need to get over to patreon.com/disenfranchpod, drop us $5 a month, and you get access not just to our second weekly show, What Are We Watching?, where we talk about the things that we watch on a weekly basis. And honestly, a lot of other stuff too. Like we had a good 20-minute conversation just about beer tonight.
Beer and weed pens.
Yeah, it was a deep conversation.
Yeah.
But you get access to that plus movie reviews, commentary tracks, sister shows. It's all behind the paywall there. Patreon.com/disenfranchpod.
Days worth of content.
So much content back.
And we still got that 7-day trial going on, Steven.
We do. I've not taken it down.
Sign up. You sign up for a 7-day trial, listen to as much of it as you possibly can, forget to cancel it, and hey, we're all friends now. We're all family. We're like Olive Garden. At the Disenfranchised Podcast Patreon, we're like Olive Garden. Everybody's family, man. You listen to our shit on Patreon, even if it's an old episode, we straight up get an email that says that you commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
So like we will be there, especially me. I will be there in a flash to reply to your comment. Good or ill, I will be there.
Yeah.
So come engage with us. Be family with us on Patreon.
Yeah.
That's the only way that you can be disenfranchised family.
That's it. That's what it is, man.
That's the only way to get unlimited breadsticks.
Now I want breadsticks.
It's the only way.
I want breadsticks now. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steven. That's my bad.
How dare you, sir?
I can't believe I've done this.
No. Anyway, I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky at Chewy Walrus. Brett, were he here, he'd be at sus_warlock on Instagram and Letterboxd. Tucker, where can we find you these days?
You can find me on, hold on just a second. I'd like to apologize because I feel like this episode went off the rails a whole bunch because of me. And this is not an excuse, just a reason. You see, I had a lot of things to say about everyone involved in this film, but as I was pretty much indifferent to the film itself, I didn't have a lot to say about the film. So if I steered the conversation too much and made it so that we didn't talk enough about Cobra, I apologize to any fan that might rub the wrong way.
I'm sorry if you're a huge fan of Cobra and really wanted to hear us get much deeper on Cobra.
All we talked about was like Cobra adjacent shit. And that's mostly my fault. So like, hopefully like you still enjoy that, because I'll probably still enjoy it while I'm editing it. But like, not everybody's me. And like, I'm a real big fan of me. So of course I'm going to love it. Like,
I can attest. He is a very big fan of himself.
So hopefully it didn't turn out negative, but if it did, just know that I apologize. It's my fault. Tune in next week where we don't talk about something that I have lopsided opinions about that have nothing to do with the film. You can find me on YouTube at Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. I'm also on the Instagrams at Tuck_Mugs. And yo, we just dropped, the team at Tuck Mugs just dropped a new Tuck Mugs post last week on the Instagrams. It's pretty rad. It's something a little different. I was talking about last week we had a little bit of a shuffle of employees. Some people had to go. We had to get some other people going on. Nothing negative. You know, it was all amicable splits. But the new team we've got going on, I think you can see from the post that we posted last week, it's the same voice, but it appeals to maybe a broader audience. So just go to Instagram at Tuck_Mugs. If you're into mugs, if you're into stuff that you can drink out of mugs, if you're into stories about how people came across certain mugs, it's for you. And yo, I'm putting out an all points bulletin for people to submit more mugs to Tuck Mugs, because we've had some guests before. Steven had his straight up Gizmo mug on there.
I did, yeah.
And Brett had an umbrella mug from the Resident Evils.
Mm-hmm.
And my good pal Jimmy from the Grand Voodoo Band had a mug on there. We even had a listener, somebody we don't know, from fucking Adam, dude. We don't know this dude. Oh, well, Steven knows him, but I don't know this motherfucker. But he sent us a mug, and it was the raddest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy. I guess we know each other now. We've been formally introduced. And he's a patron, so he's family, so it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Like, whatever. We're already family. I don't know all my cousins, but we're all family, you know?
Correct.
Anyway, yeah, Tuck Mugs. Check it out. It's really rad. It's kind of a cool thing on Instagram, because outside of going to the search page and just seeing softcore porn, or rolling through, you know, your friends and just seeing pictures of their ugly kids, you know, like, instead you can just check out some mugs, dude. There's no stakes, you know. You don't have to.
Well, no, because
like,
you don't put steaks in mugs.
Like,
you put them on plates and cut them with a fork and knife.
You know, I would argue that you could eat soup out of a mug, so you could theoretically have steak out of a mug. I eat soup out of a mug all the time. Some people put steak in soup, or you could eat stew out of a mug. It doesn't matter. This is the reason that I apologize for this episode, because of shit like this. Thank you, Steven. Anyway, yeah, steak in a mug sounds great. You know, actually, maybe the next Tuck mugs, maybe I eat some soup out of a mug. It's been coffee for too long, man.
It
Coffee
has
and beer.
been a lot of coffee.
Get some soup up. You know, it's starting to get chilly. Let's get some soup up in this motherfucker.
You know what? It's fall, man.
It's perfect. Let's do some vegetable soup, man. Let's do it. We'll do another guest mug. Well, you don't like soup. I forgot.
I don't do soup.
Well, we'll get some soup mugs. See if we can get some next guest. Put some soup in that motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of soup are you eating? What's the story behind your mug? Let's do it. Email us at disenfranchedpod@gmail.com with your Tuck mugs submissions. And that's all I'm on the social medias.
Cool. And that's it. That is our episode on 1986's Cobra, plus 20 other thoughts that Tucker had over the course of the last 90 minutes.
You guys, I was telling Steven before the recording, like, I'm extremely manic all the time, and I have like these down days where like I'm just completely dead, and like I'm not depressed. I just like I'm really sluggish and not normal Tukey mode, you know, not all like freaking out every second of the day. But I don't know what happened. We started recording this podcast, like everything, all the mania that should have happened today just like fucking exploded.
I think that's what it is. I think you were having a down day, and then we started talking, and you just started getting all like JoJo the Circus Boy. And yeah.
I was like Al Pacino in Heat,
Yes.
but like no cocaine needed. In fact, I'm drinking not stimulants. What's the other thing called? What's it called? Like I'm drinking beer and smoking weed. So like this is me on depressants, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Like get to this. Like you don't want to fuck with me in the middle of the day before I've drank any beer or like had any weed, because that's like full-fledged Tukey right there. Woo! Tukey Prime. Anyway.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Bouncing off the walls again, you guys.
Yo,
and it's like midnight. It's midnight 20.
Yeah, we're going to need to pull the plug on this motherfucker.
I'm going to go outside and run a lap around the campground.
I believe it. I believe that you are.
Can't wait.
God, you look unhinged right now.
Thank you. I love it.
You're welcome. This has been the disenfranchised episode on Cobra.
Kind of.
I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy, for my co-host Tucker and the absent Brett Wright. Until next time, Puppy peed on my couch.